The 2023 NBA playoffs have been an absolute blast so far, and there's been a ton of interesting stories, but to me the biggest story and the biggest surprise of round one has been just how good Russell Westbrook has been playing in the playoffs. Thus far, through 4 games versus the Phoenix Suns, he is averaging 26 points, 7.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, over 3 stocks, that being steals and blocks, and he is shooting over 40% from 3 on 5.5 attempts a night. And of course, before the postseason, he has looked really good for the Clippers, especially by comparison to what he did on the Los Angeles Lakers. And with that being the case, the question for me in this video is Russell Westbrook redeemed? And if he is this something that's actually going to maintain itself? Can Russell Westbrook continue to be a star player even today? Let's talk about it. Real quick before I get into this video, if you end up enjoying it, please be sure to subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. We're getting some pretty consistent playoff coverage over on this channel, and go ahead and check out my second channel where I am doing post-game recaps every day. If not 2 of them, there's going to be at least 1 every day. And the channel just hit 100K subscribers, so appreciate you for that if you are subscribed to that channel, and if you are not already, go ahead and join. So what has been so different for Russell Westbrook that has allowed him to be just so much better in a Clippers jersey than he was in a Lakers jersey? Well, I'm not exactly going to be shocking anybody when I start off this with using the word fit. Fit is just so important, and the Clippers and Russell Westbrook's marriage here has completely proven that. The shooting of the Clippers is quite good and has been really good in the playoffs. There's obviously Kawhi Leonard, Eric Gordon, Norman Powell, who just had a 40-point game, Terrence Mann, who's shooting 44% from 3 thus far in the playoffs, and of course the Clippers in the regular season, when PG and Marcus Morris were healthy, also had them as shooters. Ironically, with how spacing works, this has improved Russell Westbrook's 2-point percentage, because having the room to operate that he does means he's not consistently running into a clogged paint. Now, that's not to entirely blame all of that on the Los Angeles Lakers and their lack of spacing pre-trading Russ, because ultimately Russ is still making the decisions to just barrel into 3 defenders in the paint, but those 3 defenders no longer being there and him still making the decision to barrel into the paint has resulted in the shots going in more. He has a career-high 2-point percentage, and the best 2-point percentage he had before that was when he was on the Houston Rockets, notoriously the team where Russ had easily the most spacing to operate with that he ever has in his career. Now, one factor that's far more on the outlier side of things is that Russ is just shooting lights out from 3 on pretty damn good volume. Now, is that going to hold up? Absolutely not. I mean, I suppose it's possible, but it would be absolutely ridiculous and frankly quite tragic if Russell Westbrook learned how to shoot 3s finally at the age of 34. If anything, I would be annoyed if this 3-point shooting held up, because where the hell was this all these years? But what I will say about the 3-point shooting, the positive spin to put on it, the way that I'm viewing it, is no, he's not an improved shooter, but for better or worse, I'm well aware it can be worse. His confidence is clearly back. With the Los Angeles Lakers, while he still got his 3-point shots up, there would be a lot of times where he was just wide open on the perimeter and he would hesitate, primarily because anytime he would even dare to look at shooting a 3-pointer, the entire crowd would scream at him not to. The Los Angeles Clippers crowd is not doing that same thing. They've been quite encouraging, and it seems as though the Clippers culture and coaching has encouraged him to let these 3s fly, and it has ultimately been for the betterment of the team and for the betterment of Russell Westbrook's confidence. And yeah, Russell Westbrook's confidence can take him in the wrong direction very often, but I think we would all agree that when Russ is at his best, it's also when he's at his most confident. So even if you're going to take some negatives on with that positive, ultimately it is a positive. He's also taking care of the ball a little bit better. I do say this with him having 6 turnovers last night, but he also had 5 of them in the first quarter, and the rest of the way he was fine. Overall, saying that he's been better with the ball still is to say that he's not good at it. He's historically bad when it comes to turning over the ball, but he hasn't been as disastrous as you would typically expect. Now, his defense has probably been just as surprising, if not more surprising, than the three-point shooting. Russell Westbrook has been up and down as a defender throughout his career, more down than up. Always someone who was capable of making very prominent and huge defensive plays, but ultimately his overall effort was questionable, which is ironic given the fact that people say Russ is constantly playing at 110%, and his just ability defensively overall when it comes to knowing his rotations, being at the right place at the right time, not something he's typically amazing at. But thus far, he has absolutely been racking up the stock numbers, as I mentioned in the intro. 3.7 a game. I think that's 2 blocks and 1.7 steals, if I'm not mistaken. He has blocked Kevin Durant multiple times. He's defended Kevin Durant well. And while obviously those counting stats are cool, he's not in a situation where it's those counting stats suggesting he's a better defender than he is. If anything, the counting stats I think are distracting from the fact that he's just been playing good and solid defense like all the time, which is a huge shift and one that was probably necessary for him to make, for him to prolong his career. I don't think Russ can afford to have the deficiencies that he still has offensively, the lack of shooting, the consistently turning the ball over thing, and just taking dumb shots very often. I don't think he can afford to have those issues offensively and still not be a good defender. He was able to have those issues in the past when all of the positives were a little bit more positive than they are now, but he's trying to impact the game in what ways he can with what he has now. And he's done that, which is admirable for Russell Westbrook, who is someone who, frankly, is stubborn and has refused to change his game at any capacity throughout his entire career. So this change is definitely noteworthy and hopefully something that will stick, because it will definitely prolong his career if it does. It seems to me that Russ is finally making the necessary changes for him to still be an effective, positive basketball player, while also, because of the circumstances of the Los Angeles Clippers and him no longer dealing with the toxicity of being, well, not in LA, he's still in LA, but a Laker, it has given him the freedom to be who he is. As I mentioned a second ago, that comes with bad things sometimes, but ultimately it's better to have a confident Russ than an unconfident Russ. And because of this new liberation, he's been doing what he always does. Something we haven't really seen him do since the Wizards, and that's been utterly chaotic, but in a way that is more often than not for his team's benefit. Maybe over the years, we as fans have lessened our tolerance for Westbrook's just simply dumb, insane plays where you go, what were you even remotely thinking there? But ultimately, Russ looks more like Russ than I ever thought he'd look like Russ again. So the question is, will this hold up? Because this is the version of Russell Westbrook that we can expect to see for, until he declines, because he is 34 years old, or has another decline, I guess. He's obviously, I'm not trying to suggest that he's back to peak form, but a good player, a player who contributes to winning, a player who could potentially be labeled as a star. I do think that version of him is here, and I do think that version of him could stick. Is the three-point shooting gonna stick? No. Are the high stock numbers gonna stick? No. But is the confidence, is the ability to finish inside now that he has the spacing, is the not turning the ball over as much, is the being engaged defensively, is any of that gonna stick? I would lean towards yes, more likely than not. I obviously am not gonna guarantee any of it because Russ is always a wild card, but I do think he's made the right changes necessary, and I do think the Clippers are just the perfect spot for him to be. Presuming that he's going to be here next year, we might get a version of Russ that we have not seen in a long time over a full season to really prove it to be solid. If Russell Westbrook is not redeemed for the bad basketball that he played the last 2 years, then he is at the very least on the right path to redemption. And personally, I think he's going to get there, and I'm rooting for him because it is especially nice that he would end his career on a high note and not him just go to the Lakers, get bought out when he's traded, suck on the Clippers, and then just flame out and not play in the league anymore. It's nice that he still has some good basketball in him, and I'm going to continue to root for him. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye. Ugh.